apocalypse. For we are the dawn.
From Wolverine and Professor X to Jean Grey and Storm, the X-Men universe has been overflowing with immensely powerful mutants ever since the team first appeared decades ago. What sets them apart is that their abilities manifest, strengthen, and evolve throughout their lives, and you rarely find two mutants following the exact same journey. Some mutants have grown so powerful that the distinction between them and actual deities has become remarkably thin. Others have been worshipped, ruled supernatural dimensions, joined divine orders, or explicitly been called gods within Marvel canon. From Jean Grey's White Phoenix to Legion's reality-warping God-Mutant persona, today I'll take you through 9 mutants who've reached divine or near-divine status in the X-Men universe and tell you all about it. Jean Grey, White Phoenix of the Crown. It would be a real shame to begin any X-Men video about godlike mutants without mentioning Jean Grey, one of the most powerful telepaths and telekinetics in Marvel history. Jean has shared a uniquely deep connection with the Phoenix Force, a cosmic entity associated with life, death, rebirth, and the psychic energy of creation. However, the relationship between Jean and the Phoenix has been rewritten and expanded several times. During the original Phoenix saga, Jean was exposed to lethal radiation while piloting a damaged shuttle back to Earth. The Phoenix answered her telepathic call for help and placed the real Jean inside a healing cocoon and created a body based on Jean's form and consciousness. That Phoenix duplicate later became corrupted into Dark Phoenix and destroyed the inhabited world in the Debari system before sacrificing itself. Later stories established that Jean and the Phoenix were connected on a much more profound level. Jean could eventually become the White Phoenix of the Crown, representing one of the purest and most complete expressions of her union with the Phoenix Force. In the future depicted in New X-Men's Here Comes Tomorrow, Jean operated from the White Hot Room and altered the timeline by encouraging Cyclops to move beyond his grief and continue building a future with Emma Frost. She did not literally hold the universe in her hand or single-handedly recreate all existence, but she influenced history from a realm outside ordinary time. As the White Phoenix, Jean possesses power over matter, energy, life, death, and reality on a cosmic scale. Her status comes not merely from being an Omega-level mutant, but from becoming the most important earthly expression of one of Marvel's fundamental cosmic forces. Selene, the dark goddess of Necrotia. If you've ever wished to live for thousands of years, Selene might initially sound inspirational, until you learn that she sustains herself by draining the life energy of other people. Selene is an ancient mutant and powerful sorceress whose recorded history stretches back thousands of years. Marvel has associated her with several ancient civilizations, including societies that existed long before modern Rome. She's often described as one of the oldest known mutants, although her exact age and earliest history have varied between stories. Selene manipulated a senator named Eliphas, who would later become Eli Bard, into helping her perform a ritual that required the sacrifice of Rome's population. Eliphas failed to complete the ritual, leading Selene to curse him with immortality. Centuries later, Eli returned during the Necrotia storyline and helped Selene pursue the godhood she had wanted for a millennia. Using a modified version of the Technarch techno-organic virus combined with Selene's magic, Eli resurrected millions of dead mutants, including victims of the destruction of Genosha. Selene intended to sacrifice those resurrected mutants and absorb their spiritual energy. She successfully completed the ritual and transformed into the Dark Goddess, absorbing an enormous number of mutant souls and briefly attaining the divine power she had sought. However, she was ultimately killed by Warpath, who used a mystically empowered dagger associated with the Apache people to destroy her. Selene's godhood was temporary, but unlike many mutants who accidentally acquire cosmic power, she spent thousands of years deliberately trying to become a deity, and for one terrifying moment, she succeeded. Storm. Hadari Yao, the goddess who preserves the balance. I'm sure we're all familiar with Storm's thunderous capabilities. Aurora Monroe is an Omega-level mutant whose control over weather allows her to manipulate wind, rain, lightning, temperature, atmospheric pressure, and larger environmental systems. But Storm's relationship with godhood extends beyond the fact that her mutant abilities resemble the powers of a weather goddess. As a young woman in Africa, Aurora used her powers to bring rain and protect local communities, some of whom worshipped her as a goddess. Her mystical potential also runs through a maternal bloodline of African priestesses and sorceresses. One of Storm's most famous encounters with divine power occurred while she was depowered. Loki exploited her grief and gave her an enchanted hammer called Stormcaster, transforming her into an Asgardian goddess of thunder. Under Loki's influence, she fought her fellow X-Men and attacked Wolverine before overcoming the enchantment. She ultimately rejected Loki's offer to retain her Asgardian godhood. Storm did not defeat Thor during this original storyline, nor did an army of gods have to subdue a bloodthirsty version of her. During a later encounter involving the return of Stormcaster, she and Thor held Mjolnir together and used it to destroy the enchanted hammer. Marvel has presented that moment as evidence that Mjolnir accepted her under those circumstances. Storm's most significant canonical godhood emerged in Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther stories. Wakandans worshipped her as Hadari Yao, meaning Walker of Clouds, and their faith empowered her to confront the adversary. Rather than simply receiving a title, Storm was able to transform belief and worship into genuine mystical power. Her status as Hadari Yao therefore rests on mutant ability, inherited magical potential, and real, supernatural force generated by faith. Storm's not permanently presented as an ordinary member of Wakanda's Orisha pantheon, but she is unquestionably one of the few mutants whose worshippers have transformed her into a functioning goddess. Magic. Sorceress and former Queen of Limbo. Illyana Rasputin's story began when the younger sister of Colossus fell into the wrong hands while under the protection of the X-Men. The demon sorcerer Belasco kidnapped Illyana and brought her into Limbo, where time passed differently. Only moments went by on Earth, but Illyana spent years trapped inside the demonic dimension. Belasco corrupted portions of her soul to create bloodstones, intending to use them to summon the Elder Gods. He also trained her in dark magic, while an alternate version of Storm taught her white magic. Illyana eventually forged the Soul Sword from her own life force and soul. She used it to resist Belasco, drive him from power, and take control of Limbo herself. Her natural mutant ability allows her to create teleportation discs that travel through Limbo, enabling her to move across space and sometimes time. Her magical training, however, transformed her into one of Marvel's most powerful mutant sorceresses. Within Limbo, magic's powers are dramatically amplified. She can command demons, manipulate the environment, cast powerful spells, summon armor, create magical weapons, and transform into the increasingly demonic Darkchild. She became the ruler of Limbo, although her control of the dimension has reportedly been challenged, lost, and regained. She later transferred Limbo's throne to Madeline Pryor. Magic has not generally been worshipped as a literal goddess, but ruling an entire hell dimension places her on the same functional category as Marvel's other Hell Lords. Within Limbo, she possesses the authority, magical power, and demonic army of a supernatural monarch.
Tell me your dark desire.
Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen. Madeline Pryor was created by Mr. Sinister as a clone of Jean Grey. Sinister wanted her to have a child with Cyclops because he believed a union of the Summers and Grey genetic lines would produce an immensely powerful mutant. Madeline was not simply given a complete set of false memories from the moment of her creation. Her body remained lifeless until a portion of the Phoenix Force entered her, following the Phoenix's death on the moon. Sinister then manipulated her life and arranged for her to meet Scott Summers. Scott and Madeline fell in love, married, and had a son named Nathan Summers, who would eventually become Cable. When Jean Grey was discovered alive, Scott abandoned Madeline and their child to reunite with Jean and the original X-Men. Madeline was then attacked by Sinister's marauders and manipulated by demons during the Inferno storyline. The demon Sim actually tempted Madeline with power, while Nastir played the more direct role in awakening her psychic abilities and turning her into the Goblin Queen. After learning that she was a clone created as part of Sinister's breeding experiment, Madeline embraced her rage and allied herself with the demons of Limbo. She helped open the gateway that had allowed Limbo to transform New York City into a nightmarish hellscape. As the Goblin Queen, Madeline possessed telepathy, telekinesis, magical power, demonic influence, and command over supernatural forces. She eventually attempted to sacrifice her son Nathan as part of the Inferno ritual before dying during a confrontation with Jean Grey. Madeline has since returned and eventually became Limbo's ruler after Magic relinquished the throne. That position gives her control over a demonic dimension that makes her far more than merely a clone of Jean Grey. She may not be a literal deity, but as the Goblin Queen and ruler of Limbo, she possesses the authority and supernatural position of a Hell Lord. Dani Moonstar, Mutant Valkyrie of Asgard. Hailing from the Cheyenne Nation, Danielle Moonstar has been an important part of the mutant world since joining the New Mutants. Dani's original mutant ability allowed her to telepathically create images of a person's greatest fears. Her powers later evolved, allowing her to manifest psychic illusions and, at times, transform mental images into solid or energy-based constructs. Dani did experience visions involving the apparent deaths of her parents, but they hadn't actually been killed. They'd been transformed into demonic creatures by the villainous Demon Bear and were eventually restored. Dani's journey towards supernatural power began when the New Mutants traveled to Asgard. There, she rescued and bonded with a winged horse named Brightwind. Being chosen by the horse established her as one of the Valkyrior, Asgard's supernatural shield maidens who guide worthy fallen warriors to the afterlife. Her Valkyrie abilities included sensing the presence and danger of death, perceiving spirits, traveling between realms, and resisting supernatural forces associated with the dead. Later, Dani confronted Hela on several occasions and returned to Valkyrie service after making a bargain with the Asgardian goddess of death. However, Dani never became a variant Queen of Hell, nor did she overthrow Hela and take her throne. She served as an on-again, off-again Valkyrie and fought beside other members of that divine order. Unlike Storm, Dani was not elevated by worship. She was recruited directly into an Asgardian supernatural institution. That makes her less of a conventional goddess and more of a mutant who earned an official position within a divine order. Legion, the reality-warping mutant god. David Haller, better known as Legion, is the mutant son of Professor Charles Xavier and Gabrielle Haller. David's psyche contains numerous distinct personalities, many of which possess their own individual mutant abilities. Depending on which personality controls his body, David can display telepathy, telekinesis, pyrokinesis, teleportation, time manipulation, reality alteration, and countless other powers. The number of personalities and powers inside him is varied enormously. At different points, he's possessed hundreds or even thousands of personas, but he's not been reliably established as containing more than 200 separate Omega-level personalities. One of his most powerful identities called itself the Legion, and was nicknamed the God-Mutant by Magic. This personality could manipulate time and rewrite reality. David's most famous alteration of history occurred when he traveled into the past, intending to kill Magneto. Xavier sacrificed himself to save Magneto, causing a world without Professor X and creating the Age of Apocalypse timeline. David has also absorbed personalities and powers, constructed psychic worlds, defeated supernatural beings, and reshaped reality. Marvel's description of X-Men Legacy explicitly characterizes him as a mutant who has killed gods and reshaped the face of the universe. At the conclusion of X-Men Legacy, David did not literally wipe himself completely out of all of space and time. He altered reality so that he'd never been born, preventing catastrophic events connected to his existence. However, Blindfold retained a psychic connection to him, and David later returned. Legion's godhood is not based on worship, a throne, or a divine pantheon. It's based on the scale of his abilities. Few mutants possess enough power to rewrite history, create realities, and challenge gods simply by allowing the right personality to take control. Exodus, the faith-empowered mutant crusader. Exodus began life in 12th century France as a knight named Benet du Paris. During his travels, Benet encountered Apocalypse, who awakened and enhanced his mutant abilities. Apocalypse attempted to turn him into a servant, but Benet eventually rejected him and was imprisoned for centuries. In the modern era, Exodus became one of Magneto's most devoted followers and a leader among the Acolytes, a group that treated Magneto as the savior of mutant kind. Exodus possesses an enormous collection of psionic abilities, including telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, flight, force field generation, energy projection, mental control, and superhuman physical enhancement. He's also demonstrated the ability to heal or resurrect others under extraordinary circumstances. His power can be strengthened by faith, particularly the faith that other people placed in him or in a cause that he's embraced. During the Krakoan era, Exodus became the spiritual storyteller of mutant society, teaching young mutants about figures such as Hope Summers and building a developing mutant mythology. However, he's never grown into a near-Galactus level entity, simply because an army worshipped him. While he can be exceptionally powerful, comparisons with Galactus exaggerate both his normal strength and the demonstrated limits of his faith amplification. It would also be misleading to describe Exodus as the kindest mutant representative. He's committed acts of terrorism, attempted mass murder, promoted mutant supremacy, and repeatedly attacked both humans and mutants in the name of his beliefs. What makes him godlike is the combination of immense psychic power, extreme longevity, religious conviction, and the ability to become stronger through faith. Exodus behaves less like a conventional superhero and more like a crusading prophet who can turn his belief itself into power. Iceman, the Omega-level mutant who discovered his own god-tier power. Also known as Robert Bobby Drake, Iceman's mutant powers publicly manifested when he protected himself and his girlfriend from a violent bully by trapping the attacker in ice. Bobby later joined Professor Xavier's school and became one of the 5 founding members of the X-Men. For years, Iceman was treated as the team's comic relief and appeared to possess a relatively straightforward ice creation ability. Later stories revealed that Bobby's an Omega-level mutant whose true power involves controlling temperature and reducing molecular motion. The story described here did not occur in a comic called Iceman Omega. It happened in the 2022 Marvel Voices Iceman Infinity comic. In that story, Bobby worked with Loki and confronted a monster that took the appearance of Bobby's abusive and homophobic father. Loki gave Bobby a crown and scepter, claiming that the objects would grant him Frost Giant power and help him unlock a stronger form. Bobby transformed into an enormous icy figure and defeated the creature. Loki then revealed that the crown and scepter did not give Bobby any power. They were essentially props. Everything Bobby accomplished came from abilities he already possessed, but had psychologically prevented himself from fully accessing. That moment didn't transform him into a literal ice god or a wizard. Instead, it demonstrated that his supposedly god-tier potential had always belonged to him. Bobby could turn his body into sentient ice, rebuild himself after being shattered or melted, create multiple ice bodies, exist through surrounding moisture, alter his size, manipulate enormous quantities of water, and freeze matter at an extremely advanced level. However, he's not been clearly established as possessing the general ability to freeze time itself. Reducing molecular motion is not the same thing as stopping time, and real-world thermodynamics does not make that leap possible. Bobby's divine status is therefore metaphorical rather than religious. He has no permanent worshippers, throne, or pantheon. What he possesses is an Omega-level power whose upper limit cannot be meaningfully measured, and a body that can survive forms of destruction that would permanently kill almost anyone else. And that's a wrap. While we've come across Jean Grey, Storm, and Exodus at various points in the roller coaster that is the X-Men universe, I hope this video gave you a little more insight into the divine titles, supernatural offices, and reality-shattering capabilities these mutants have acquired. Not everyone on this list is a literal god in the exact same sense. Selene temporarily completed a ritual that explicitly transformed her into a goddess. Storm gained genuine power through worship as Hadari Yao. Danny Moonstar joined the Valkyrier, an Asgardian supernatural order. Magic and Madeline Pryor ruled Limbo like Helllords. Jean Grey became the White Phoenix, while Legion acquired power capable of rewriting reality. Exodus and Iceman are better described as godlike mutants whose abilities, faith, or potential place them close to divine without making them conventional deities. But at the end of it all, these characters prove just how easy the line between mutant and god can disappear in the Marvel Universe. But that's all from me. I'm curious to hear what you think about them in the comments below. If you liked this video, hit like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell, so when I come up with some more mutant mayhem, you find out first. Stay safe, have a great day, and as always, stay marvelous.